Okay, in this video we're going to look at scenario number 3. Now we'll just look at the beginning of scenario number 3. I think some of these parts I can maybe move a little faster since you've already seen the other. Okay, so in this example, as you saw in the notes, we have two countries, Abundancia y Cotono. So they are producing guns and butter. Okay, so kind of a classic example, the guns and butter again, like we saw like you'll see in your homework problem. Okay, so in this country they have a lot of stuff. They can produce lots of stuff. So they can produce 100 guns. If they go to the other extreme and do only butter, they can do 200 butter. So they're good at both things. And then the other country, Cotono, not as good at, well, let's see. Let's write it down. So in the other country, they can do 40 butter if they concentrate only on butter, okay? Or if they concentrate only on, guns, 40 guns. And then if they concentrate only on butter, they can do 160 units of butter, okay? So the first thing we can say, well, we ask, well, who has absolute advantage? And we can say, well, in this case, Abundancia has absolute advantage in both. So we assume they have the same resources or the same amount of resources. So Abundancia is doing better at both things. So they have absolute advantage at both. So the question I have for you, and maybe you should take a second and pause the video, is can they make a productive trade? Okay, so take a second and pause and then come right back after you make a prediction. Okay, so the answer is yes. So actually trade doesn't depend on absolute advantage. Absolute advantage doesn't really matter. It matters for the total that the country is going to get, but it doesn't matter for the trade being better off than not trading. Okay, so what matters for trade is about opportunity cost and comparative advantage. So yes, they actually can trade in this situation. So let's go ahead and calculate the opportunity cost for both sides. Okay, so let's get our opportunity cost, and then we'll look at comparative advantage real quick. Okay, so we got the two countries. Okay, so Abundancia, they could go to one extreme and do 100 guns, or they could go to the other extreme and do 200 butter. So if we divide both sides by 100, we can say, well, here we can say, well, one gun is 2 butter. And then if we divide both sides by 2 and switch the order, or 1 butter is a half of a gun. Okay, so that's their opportunity cost. And then we can also do the same thing for Cotono. Okay, so they could do one extreme of 40 guns, or they could go to the other extreme of 160 butter. Again, they can do things in between, but we're just going to the extremes because it's easier for the calculation. So dividing both sides by 40, dividing both sides by 40, we end up with one gun is equal to 4 butter. Or 1 butter, divide both sides by 4 and switch the order, equal to 1/4 of a gun. Okay, so this is their opportunity cost. And then we can see, okay, compare the two. Well, who has comparative advantage in guns? Well, Abundancia does because it's cheap for them. When they produce guns, it only costs 2 butter, and for the other country, it costs 4, sorry. And then we compare the butter, and so if one country has a comparative advantage on one side, the other one has to have it on the other. So you find that it only costs them 1/4 of a gun, whereas for the other country, Abundancia, it costs 1/2 of a gun. So it's cheaper in Cotono. One thing to notice, besides the fact that these comparative advantages sort of come in pairs, is that these opportunity costs are much closer together than the previous example, and therefore the gain from this trade is going to be a little bit smaller. So actually, again, comparative advantage and opportunity cost is the essential part of trade. But yes, Abundancia can make guns cheaper than Cotono can, and Cotono can make butter cheaper than Abundancia can. So let's finish this. Okay, now Abundancia has comparative advantage in guns. That means they can make it cheaper in terms of opportunity cost. And Cotono has comparative advantage butter. Okay, so In the next video, we'll come back and look at how they specialize their production and how to do the trade.